On August 24th, 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying the city Pompeii and its terrified inhabitants under nearly 20 feet of debris, where they remained frozen in layers of ash for the next 1,500 years until discovery. Pompeii was established at the intersection of three major roads, quickly becoming a crossing point between the north and south and a main trade and travel hub. However, because of this, it was affected by various religions and traditional beliefs that came from other empires and civilizations, such as Egypt and the goddess Isis. In many societies, ancient and modern, religion has performed a major role in development, and the Roman Empire was no different. From the beginning, Roman religion was polytheistic. So when Pompeii was affected by Egyptian religion, such as with the goddess Isis, it was accepted over time and therefore blended in or were melded into the already existing gods. The first indication of the disaster ahead was in 62 AD. A destructive earthquake occurred which caused streams and wells to dry up and damaged many buildings on Pompeii. The first of the completed repairs and reconstruction was the Temple of Isis, showing both its cultural, societal, and religious significance to the population of Pompeii. The goddess Isis was first venerated in Egypt, the only goddess worshipped by all Egyptians alike, and whose influence was so widespread that she had become completely synergistic with the Greek goddess Demeter, and later the Roman goddess Venus. In the Roman Empire, Isis became known as both Isis of 10,000 Names and Isis Queen of Heaven, where she also became the new form of Venus, who was the patron god of Pompeii, and due to this allowed Isis to gain great influence in the cultural, societal, and religious life of Pompeii. With Isis gaining this prestige, the goddess over time became the leading deity within the city and surrounding areas of Italy. In later years, Isis also had temples throughout Europe, Africa, and Asia, showing her importance and the relatability she had to multiple empires, kingdoms, and the people who resided in them. Isis had a large impact on the Roman Empire, as she symbolized his protection, trade, sailing, beauty, women, magic, life, death, and fertility all at once. This fluidity of her divine will, or figure, within the mythos, also impacted her relationship with cults, making her become a leading deity in both cities and towns overtly, but also secretly a goddess of cults and everlasting life. The worship of Isis eventually spread without the Mediterranean and Roman Empire, as she absorbed the aspects and traits of many other goddesses, such as Venus or Aphrodite in Greece, therefore becoming them in later forms. The Temple of Isis in Pompeii is a Roman temple dedicated to the Egyptian goddess Isis. This small and almost intact temple was among one of the first discoveries during the archaeological dig of Pompeii in 1764. In the aftermath of the temple's discovery, many well-known artists and illustrators swarmed to the site. She was worshipped as the ideal mother, wife, the matron of nature and magic, as well as a protector. She was the friend of slaves, sinners, artisans, downtrodden, but also listened to all the classes no matter where you were in life. Isis worship was concerned about the acquisition of knowledge, since knowledge could only be obtained from the gifts of the god. Due to this, she was also loved by poets and those of intellectuals and philosophers as well. Isis was viewed as a protector within the Roman Empire, a belief that was emphasized to the populace. The destruction of Pompeii, however, was not blamed upon Isis, but was seen as collateral damage in either an argument between gods, or the gods were displeased by the Roman Empire. Instead, Isis was seen as a strong goddess who saved the survivors of Pompeii, and furthermore a protector of the surroundings and Italy as a whole. As Mount Vesuvius erupted, many of the people fleeing for their lives paused to grab objects of value such as jewelry and coins. For example, a necklace of the goddess Isis, a protection charm from harm, was found alongside the skeleton of a young pregnant woman as she fled from Pompeii. By the time the eruption sputtered to an end the next day, Pompeii was buried under millions of tons of volcanic ash. Pompeii was abandoned for centuries then. Pliny the Younger, who watched the eruption from across the bay, compared this cloud of unusual in size and appearance to a pine tree that rose to a great height on a sort of trunk and then split into branches. Today, geologists refer to this type of volcano as a Plinian eruption. This is named after Pliny the Younger. So how did a centuries-old, prosperous, beautiful city get buried not just by ash but by forgetfulness? It's likely that Pompeii was lost in the cultural shift from Roman values and ideals to Christian ones in the Western world, just as Isis did as she was delegated to a cult status. It disappeared geography but also became socially unintelligible as the centuries wore on. This was a world before Christian morals dominated the West, and where the line between public and private was often hard to find. Pompeii largely disappeared from history until 1594, when architect Domenico Fontana stumbled onto its ruins while in the process of digging a canal. Evacuations of the city didn't begin in earnest until 1748 under the Bourbon King Charles. The work done at Pompeii from the mid-18th century onward marked the beginning of the modern science of archaeology. And still today, areas of Italy around Pompeii still sing songs and prayers of Isis, the goddess. To conclude, the goddess Isis became known as the new form of Venus, who was the patron god of Pompeii, and due to this allowed Isis to gain great influence in the cultural, societal, and religious life of Pompeii. With Isis gaining this prestige, the goddess over time became the leading deity within the city and surrounding areas of Italy. However, after the eruption and during, she seemingly could not protect the people as they held that belief, and over time only became a cult goddess.